intersectionality continues to make people on the left insanely stupid. So overnight, literally over a 24-hour period, there were a bevy of anti-right-wing disruptions on campus. So Christina Hoff Sommers, a friend of mine, the factual feminist, she's a professor, she was speaking about feminism, and she was speaking about the failures of the social justice warrior program, and she was shouted down. This is at a law school. Okay, so this was happening at Lewis and Clark Law School, which is one of the better schools in the country, and a coalition of student groups had demanded that what they called known fascist Christina Hoff Sommers be no platform, meaning that they shouldn't allow her to speak. And they put out, the Portland National Lawyers Guild put out a statement saying, "We are proud of our student chapter for taking a concerted stand against fascist, racist, and misogynistic views being broadcasted on campus. The National Lawyers Guild Lewis and Clark chapter is joined with the Minority Law Students Association, Black Law Students Association, Women's Law Caucus, Immigration Student Group, Jewish Law Society, Latino Law Society, Outlaw, and Lewis and Clark Young Democratic Socialists of America to ask the Federalist Society to rescind their invitation." They did not rescind the invitation, and Christina Hoff Sommers showed up anyway. I really like Christina. She is a charming woman, and not only is she charming, she's also quite intelligent and has a lot to say. She is not a fascist, okay? There's no evidence that she's a fascist, and the attempt to boil down fascism to anything I don't like is simply idiotic. Which is more fascist? Christina Hoff Sommers coming and speaking about the lies of the feminist movement, or the people who are suggesting that they should actually be able to shut down her lecture by use of force? Okay, that seems a little more fascist to me. So here's a little bit of the video when Christina started trying to start her lecture last night at Lewis and Clark Law School.
Check, mic check. We choose to protest, male supremacy, not give it a platform. Christina Sommers has repeatedly delegitimized the suffering of women worldwide. But we believe our siblings and our comrades. Women are not liars with victim mentalities. Rape culture is not a myth. Microaggressions are real. The gender gauge gap is real. Trans people are real. Trans lives matter. Black lives matter.
Yeah.
Okay, check. We can leave.
So,
are you done?
It's okay.
Like-
It's okay.
What
side are you on, friends? What side are you on?
Just absolute class shown by the university over at Lewis and Clark. Disgusting stuff, but not a shock. I remember they tried to do this to me over at University of Wisconsin. If I were Christina, I immediately would have done exactly what I did at University of Wisconsin. She's got an entire whiteboard behind her. That gives her the ability to create some pretty fun visuals with the people who are standing right there. I remember I wrote on the blackboard, it was a rising blackboard at University of Wisconsin, I wrote in very large letter, idiots, with an arrow pointing to the people who were protesting. And so that was in all the pictures, which is kind of funny. I would have recommended to Christina that she do that as well. It's asinine. But that wasn't the only place this was happening yesterday. So my friend Jordan Peterson, he was speaking over in Canada. I'm trying to remember which university this was. And while he was speaking, it was Queen's University. And while he was speaking, people started banging on the windows, trying to shatter the windows at this church. I mean, it's happening in Grant Hall, I guess. So I'm not sure if it was a church or if it was just a lecture hall. And people started banging on the windows, people attempting to stop the lecture. They were followed by a bunch of violent people afterward. Here's a little bit of the video from Jordan Peterson's lecture. Again, this is all happening in the same 48-hour period, just demonstrating to you how intersectionality has made the left completely insane. Okay, so well done for the college. Where is their security? Why is security not removing those people? Why is security not preventing those people from disrupting the lecture? The answer is because security allows people to do all this sort of stuff because they don't want to be seen as repressive of the actual repressive forces. It's the same reason I get shuttled to satellite campuses at University of Minnesota. It's the reason they shut my lectures to the public at University of Connecticut and University of California, Los Angeles and University of California, Berkeley. It's the reason why we have trouble at every campus, because the administrators are too chicken bleep to actually stand up to the violent people. Okay, and it's not just them. It's not just them. There was another case of this last night as well. It was also Yaron Brook. So Yaron Brook is an objectivist, meaning that he is a devotee of Ayn Rand. I find his thought really interesting. He and I disagree about some things, obviously, because I'm not an objectivist. I think that Ayn Rand is great on economics and not great when it comes to extending her philosophy to personal relationships. But in any case, he was speaking at King's College, I guess, and he in Britain, and an Antifa mob showed up and shut him down. So here's what that looked like.
Man, I don't know if you know about the Exeter event that happened a minute ago, where some people tried to silence me.
Back away! Put your hands on people! Back away! Back away! Back away!
Then violence breaks out. One of the students who's doing the filming is attacked. Just wonderful stuff. According to the Examiner, this is the London Examiner, I believe, the violent protests also broke out outside after around 200 students were turned away when King's College decided to prevent non-students from attending the event. Again, King's College did exactly what so many colleges have done to me. They've suggested that people should not be allowed to attend from the outside world. Students told the Examiner they believe King's College turned a blind eye to the Antifa members because they disagreed with the content of the speech, but they couldn't legally prevent Yaron Brook and Sargon of Akkad, who's kind of a YouTube figure, from speaking on campus. Students who waited outside the auditorium became enmeshed in a protest. The school knew was coming, and Antifa released smoke bombs and threw punches. Students were in the line of fire. One student told the news organization, quote, "I feel strongly the university caved into the Antifa protesters. They need to protect speech and not prevent people from joining peacefully. They changed criteria just 2.5 hours prior to the event, despite it having been scheduled for months. I'm very disappointed in an institution, a top university in the world, acting cowardly like this." Okay, but this has become obviously the thing the left does. Now, why is the left so angry at Christina Hoff Sommers or Jordan Peterson or Yaron Brook and Sargon of Akkad? Why are they so angry at these people? Well, because all of these people violate the tenets of intersectionality. Intersectionality is the philosophy, it's identity politics. It's the philosophy that says your identity as a person is your group identity. You're not an individual, you are a group identity. So you're a black guy, you are not a person with individual viewpoints. And if you're a black guy, your viewpoint should be of the left, because otherwise you're not truly black. If you're a Jewish person, you must be of the left, because as we all know, Jews vote Democrat. And that means that if you're Jewish and you're not of the Democratic left, then you must not be a good representative of Judaism, you must not be a good Jew, and therefore we rip away your intersectional identity. Okay, the foolishness of this is pretty obvious and pretty astonishing, but unfortunately, it has infused the entire left. It really has infused a large portion of the left, identity politics predominating over meaningful discourse, This is groups like Refuse Fascism. Don't worry, I'll get to the alt-right later. This is groups like Refuse Fascism, which professes to promote protest, but has actually said it won't rule out working with groups like Antifa. Here is the poster that they put out earlier about me. I don't know who designs their posters, but guys, this is too many words. Just bad logo and bad imagery, just poorly done. They say on this that the problem is not campus thuggery. For those of you who can't see, it says, no, Ben Shapiro, the problem is not campus thuggery. The problem is fascist intellectual thuggery in the service of the Trump-Pence fascist regime. Well, to believe this, you have to have your head so far up your ass you can actually see your colon firsthand. let's define a few terms. First of all, fascist intellectual thuggery. Let's start with fascism. What exactly is fascism? Well, this is a term that gets thrown around a lot by people who have never read a book. Okay, fascism is the phenomenon whereby people believe that they have the capacity to ram their beliefs down your throat at the point of a gun, or say the point of a baton, or by throwing Molotov cocktails. That's what fascism truly is. Fascism is even more of a tactic than it is an ideology. It's sort of vague in terms of ideology. You've had people on the left who are fascist, people like Stalin, and then you've had people who are on the European right, like Hitler, who's a fascist, who's actually closer to the traditional American left than he would be to the traditional American right. But I've been spending my entire career standing up against fascism and the idea of an overreaching government that uses the power of the gun in order to compel people to do what they want. Antifa is fascist. I am not a fascist. And as far as the service to the Trump-Pence fascist regime, first of all, I just want to note something. For all the talk about Trump and Pence being fascists, like look at the protests outside. Where's Orange Hitler shutting it down? Right? He's nowhere to be found. This idea that we're living in a fascist country, we're actually living under a relatively ineffectual regime, a relatively ineffectual administration, if anything, but the idea that we're living in some sort of fascist dystopia is utterly absurd. As far as the idea that, I'm a white supremacist in service to Trump-Pence, couple problems there. One, as far as the service to Trump-Pence, again, I didn't vote for Trump or Hillary. I didn't vote for either of them, actually. So this idea that I am somehow a servant of Trump is absurd and requires you to be functionally illiterate. As far as the idea I'm a white supremacist, you see the thing on the top of my head, right? This funny hat. It's called a yarmulke. Hey, white supremacists aren't that fond of it, which is why I was, according to the Anti-Defamation League, the #1 recipient of white supremacist anti-Semitism on the internet among journalists in 2016. But no, I'm a white supremacist now. Because this is the way the left works, right? If you don't agree with them, everyone's a white supremacist. You're a Nazi, Nazis should be punched, and therefore it's totally fine to stand outside and try to shut down events if you can get away with it. They're not getting away with it tonight because the police have been allowed to actually do their jobs. So what is their specific objection to me? Well, according to this masterfully done poster, it says, Shapiro is coming to campus to spread ugly fascist views, dressed up in slick-talking intellectual garb. I do like the slick talking. It says, this is harmful, exclamation point. He, along with fascists of many stripes, have targeted Berkeley because reversing Berkeley's radical history would be a major advance for the consolidation of fascism on campuses everywhere and throughout society. The reason I'm here, I've been asked this a lot, the reason that I am here is because fascism does not own this university. Because there are students who do want to hear differing views, who don't want to be told that they can only hear one view, who don't believe that the First Amendment should die under the jackboots and Birkenstocks of a bunch of anarchist communists